everyone, welcome to Kababayan LA. Can you guess where we're at? Well, for 3 weeks we've been talking about it, plugging it, inviting you to come with us. Finally, we are here in the beautiful island of Formosa, more popularly known as Taiwan. And this afternoon on the show, we're going to bring you some of the highlights from our first day of tour at makikilala nyo din po kung sino yung ating mga kababayan na nakasama sa atin dito sa ating lakwatsa. But you know what? There are two things that people do in order to travel or when they travel. The first is to tour. Also, another one is to migrate. A lot of people still migrate to the States. Kaya bago ang lahat, pag-usapan po muna natin ang immigration update from our American Dream.
This American Dream segment is brought to you by Aquino & Lowe Law Firm, answering your immigration questions.
Attorney Richard Lowe joining us once again on Kababayan LA. I like it when you're here every time, you and Allison, because you get to talk to us, you explain immigration law to us, because it can be very confusing. So what exciting topic are we going to discuss today?
We're going to discuss the exciting world of non-immigrant intent. That is, when you come into this country, you must come in with non-immigrant intent, not wanting to stay here permanently.
Okay, this figures twice. When you come into the country, entry into the U.S. plus adjustment of status, right? We're going to talk about entry to the U.S. first. Why is this important?
Well, when you're trying to come to the U.S., particularly as a tourist or as a student, you want to show that the embassy that you're not coming here to live permanently.
Okay.
Oftentimes people focus on what they're going to do when they get here,
right.
But you need to also focus on the things that you're leaving behind. That is a home, a family, a job, those kinds of things to convince them that you're not going to stay here permanently.
Right. You have to show proof of the intention to go back to the Philippines. Let's say, for example, you have a home there, you have a family, you're leaving children behind, correct?
That's basically what you're doing. You're saying, I'm going temporarily, I'm going to come back, and this is why I have a house, I have a job, I have a family that I need to come back to, and you show all of this to the embassy, and then on that basis they will decide whether or not you're going to come to stay permanently.
Right, and the second time it figures again is adjustment of status here.
Right. You know, an adjustment of status is really kind of an entry. So at that point they go back and they look, you know, even if you've been here for a long time, they're going to look how you came in. And oftentimes the problem arises when somebody you know, enters on Monday and gets married on Tuesday, you know, and then
unless it's a fiancé visa.
Well, yeah, but fiancé visas aren't subject to the non-immigrant intent problem, because the idea is they're obviously going to come.
Exactly.
L's and H's aren't subject to that either.
Okay.
So, but as a tourist or as a student, if you come in and you do something that's going to be like you're going to stay here permanently right after coming in, that can be an issue. So you need to pay attention to that.
Aside from that, what are the common mistakes involving a non-immigrant intent that people make?
Well, I think one of the things is they believe that once I get the visa from the consulate, then I'm done. I can just come in and out of the United States during the time of that visa is valid. I don't have to worry about it. But if you're out of, you know, in the United States for a long time and then you leave for 2 weeks and you come back, the issue of non-immigrant intent comes back at the point of entry. So that officer can ask you, wait a second, you were here for 6 months.
Right.
Why are you coming back so soon?
So you maxed out your stay and then now you're back so soon.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that issue arises again, and they can actually deny you entry based on that.
Right. What are the consequences?
Well, the consequences are if either at the port of entry or an adjustment of status, they find that you did not have non-immigrant intent, that's kind of considered fraud. Mm-hmm. You're basically misrepresenting your intentions for coming into the United States, and that opens up a whole can of worms. Now you need a fraud waiver to come in, and it's a big mess.
And they can also deport you right there and then, or?
Well, if you come to the border and they believe that you are coming to stay permanently, that you are not actually a tourist or actually a student, then they can prevent you from coming into the United States, and they will remove you expeditiously.
Right. So what if, like, you get to the border, you actually fly, you actually get your visa, you get to fly, and then the immigration officer right at the airport asks you questions. What are some of the questions that we need to maybe practice for or be aware of?
Well, anytime you've spent a good deal of time in the United States, you need to be aware that if you leave and return, you're going to get questions about what you had been doing here and what you intend to be doing here. For example, I had a client who had opened up a bank account and had transactions, and for some reason the Immigration Service knew that.
Oh, okay.
And so they were questioning him. Well, why do you have a bank account if you're not staying here permanently?
And that comes up in the computer, or is that?
This came up because other reasons, so that there were some other issues that he had risen when he came to the port of entry. So those other things came up when they did a further investigation. But it was based on the questioning at the port of entry that he was saying, I'm just coming here temporarily. I was just here for a short time, and then these other things were brought up later, saying, look, well, this was your statement, but that's not consistent.
So in your experience as an immigration lawyer, what are the strongest non-immigrant intent reasons that we can show?
Well, obviously, if you have a home and you have a job and you have a family back in your home country, that's going to be the strongest thing that you can show to the embassy, that you're not going to stay in the United States or here. The other thing is, if you leave and come back several times, that gives the indication to the embassy that you are complying with the rules, that you are going to leave the United States, so you have more likelihood of running into less problems if you are leaving on short trips, coming to the United States and returning. That sort of builds up goodwill, if you say.
I hear, though, of people like asking us, say, for example, to send them like an invitation to a wedding, an invitation to, tour a facility or something like that. Does that help?
That can be helpful. I think if you present that to the embassy, then you're showing that you have a reason. You're not just going for any, just because you want to go. You have an intent, and that can often overcome issues of well, you don't have a lot of you don't have a house, or you don't have children, but you have this a strong an invitation, a clear-cut time that you're going to be in the United States.
So usually when we apply for a visa, especially for tourist or student visa, we don't need a lawyer. But when do we actually need to contact a lawyer in terms of all this? Just to put things in perspective.
Well, I think, most of the time as a tourist, you're not going to hire an attorney. But I think if you come to the port of entry and there are issues, you want to try as best you can to find an attorney. A lot of times at the port of entry, they're not going to allow you to speak to an attorney. But you should try to, at least try at that point. And then if not, immediately afterwards, immediately after you return to your home country, if there's that issue, you need to speak to an attorney.
And I know so many of you kababayans are in need of a lawyer. Aquino and Low Law Firm actually do give free office consultation. That's the number to call on the screen. Schedule your appointments now. Thank you so much, and more power to you.
Thank you.
So after the immigration update on American Dream, are you ready to explore Taiwan? Well, that comes after we take a break.